Hey, everybody. Welcome to the Core Energy Experience. Today, we're going to be discussing the mind body energy connection. This is a big part of what the Core Energy Dynamics is about, a very integral part of it. And today, to help us unwind that a bit, is a very special man, John Yablonski. And I'd like to introduce him and welcome John. Thanks for coming.
Thanks, Kurt. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, we're very excited to have you on. You have a lot to unwind here, so we're going to get into it.
Sounds like a plan.
All right.
I'm ready when you are.
Good. So you've had a lot go on in your life so far, lots of experiences. One I like to pick up on right away is your experience in the athletic world, and so the audience knows you were a D1 divisional basketball player at Seton Hall.
That's correct. I played at Seton Hall from 1993 to 1997. Um, Basketball has been a big part of my life growing up prior to that and then after that. So I can kind of give you, the history of how I got there, which is
Yeah, man.
a very unconventional way. Probably not something that would happen too much in today's world, but I'm happy to dig through that.
Please go ahead as you will.
Okay. So I grew up in Linden, New Jersey, in Union County. Just gravitated towards sports since I was young. I would say my parents, knew about sports, but weren't really playing too many sports growing up or things like that. So it was really something I took to on my own. Um, I was small for my age all the time, so I was always undersized. But I always loved being out there doing things. And as I gradually continued to play different sports, basketball became something, that really resonated with me. So basketball, obviously, as you look at today's world and there's, guys who are 6'11" or 7 foot doing things that, no one has ever seen before. So it was a little different back then, but height was a big thing to it. I wind up playing in high school. I went to Roselle Catholic High School in Roselle, New Jersey, and I played high school basketball. I actually played JV as a junior.
Wow. Very
Okay,
nice.
I played JV as a junior, which is probably not the ideal path for a Division I basketball player. You probably wouldn't have too many people doing that. So I was playing JV as a junior. I played, only started 5 games as a senior in high school, and then just decided to go to Seton Hall. I was not recruited there. I was not recruited to other Division III schools. And once I got to Seton Hall, I still had that passion for basketball. So I would go to class, and every day I'd play 4, 5, 6 hours of basketball. Um, I got to be competitive. I got to be good. I have a little edgy side to me because I wasn't maybe the tallest player and I needed a little edge. So I always had that mental thing in my head that I had to, be a little much better than everybody else. So
Sure.
I took that. I met someone who was on the basketball team that year. His name was Chris Davis, and they were ranked 7th in the country my freshman year at Seton Hall.
Wow.
So they had a very good team, and the head coach there was PJ Carlissimo. The following year, he
Yeah,
told
yeah.
me that they had walk-on tryouts. So he said, "Why don't you come out?" So I went from 2 years prior to playing JV high school basketball as a junior to trying out for Seton Hall's team, and I was fortunate enough to make the team after many cuts. So it was almost surreal. There was no social media back then. There was no cell phones to tell anybody. It was really kept under the radar. I didn't really tell anybody until I finally made the team. So that was a huge accomplishment for me. I got to play on a team that was, previous year 7th in the country. So, I
Yeah.
was just taking it all in. These were all
And
the
PJ, what a mentor he is. Holy cow.
Yeah, he was very I liked him. He's a disciplinarian. You knew kind of what the rules were and where you stood, and if you
Sure.
went outside those lines, there were consequences, which I liked. I mean, I was all for that, and I just tried to basically take it all in. I had zero expectation of playing really in games. I was just happy to be part of the team. And then I just learned every day through guys who were so much better than I was, and them giving it to me every day because I really wasn't at that level where they were. But I was competitive, and I always had that mental, I'm going to win every sprint, all the things I could control. I tried to handle that. My attitude, be early for everything, all those things, just be the best teammate I could be. So I was fortunate enough to be on the team that year. The next year, you know, uh, I got a chance to play a little bit. Danny Hurley, who's the head coach of UConn, was my teammate. Then during the time he had taken some
Some
time
big
off.
names, PJ and
Yeah, yeah, Danny Hurley,
Curly
yes,
rather. Yeah.
yeah. So that second year I was on the team, Danny had gotten a concussion. We were playing at Rutgers, which is our in-state rival, and George Blaney, who was now the head coach of the team because PJ had left to go to the, Portland
Right.
Trailblazers in the NBA. They put me in the game, which was on ESPN. So again, no social media back then or cell phones. So
This is your sophomore year?
this is my second year playing, which was actually my third year in school. They put me in the game on ESPN against Rutgers, and I wound up hitting 4 3-pointers that game.
Sweet.
Um, yeah, unfortunately, we didn't win the game, which would have been the great story. But I was given an opportunity. You get opportunities in life, and what do you do with them? So I was fortunate enough that I was prepared, and obviously, you still got to put the ball in the basket in a crucial game. And it's funny how my life had kind of changed from basketball in that moment too, because now a lot of people saw it, even though there was not cell phones and, like I said, social media,
Sure.
but people were
And
watching it.
ESPN, yeah.
And to this day, people still bring that one game up to me, which is great because I feel like I was prepared. And then things changed after that. I had a different perspective. I said now I can play with these guys, and I
There we go.
was able to get opportunities, and I did become I contribute during some meaningful games for the rest of my career. But then that kind of launched me into, well, why can't I do anything I want? I just did something that most kids can't do or don't dream of, and being a JV player as a junior to then playing in meaningful games for Division 1. So
Let me stop you there for a
yeah,
minute.
of course.
So let's talk about the transition of that. Let's talk about the transition when you went from high school and didn't start playing until later on, and then into the college, and when you jumped from one to the other. What was that transition like for you?
It was very difficult to begin with. There's days where things aren't going your way, and the mind is an interesting, a piece of information that it keeps giving you on what you can do or what you can't do.
A
And
lot of influences in the mental part.
yeah, and it kind of seems like if you could easily go down, the bad side of it and say, how can I do this or why? And then I feel like your outcome is dictated by your mindset.
Right.
So there were some of those days where I probably said, I don't know if I really belong here or can compete, but
That's that inner critic coming at you, and
yeah,
then the kind of we work with two energies in the core energy dynamics. One is the anabolic. That's the filling, the constructive, the building energy, dopamine push
hmm,
filled. The opposite is what we're going to talk about now is the catabolic. So that's the deconstructive, the breakdown, the cortisol dumps,
right.
as you know, and you're familiar with both of those. Obviously, being an
Yes.
athlete.
Yes. And interesting how powerful the mind is with that. But then once you get a little bit of success, when you start to really believe it, you verbalize it, and then the actions actually, take part to be on the more positive scale. And then when you do have those negative thoughts, you're able to push those maybe a little easier away. Not that you still don't have them. I think everybody does, no matter how successful you are.
Absolutely.
But when they become less because you have maybe a little more, you're more aware of those things. And then I think I just realized that I could do this whether there was good or bad days. The mindset is, like I said, the first and foremost, you got to believe it, and then you get the action right behind it. So
Definitely.
that was a huge stepping stone for me, just not only in sports but kind of going forward in my life.
And it sounds like it started building you out as a person.
Yeah, I mean, I was young at that point. Those are your 18 to 23-year-old years, and
Sure.
you're trying to figure out what you're going to do in life with your job or whatever. Coming out of school. So the basketball part was a big thing, and like I said, to this day, like people really I guess I'm synonymous with whatever else I'm doing and basketball all the time, whether it's my job or my kids or something.
Yeah.
People just know me as, a player or a coach or, something connected to that sport.
Right. It's interesting. Again, in the core energy dynamics, we work with influencers, and you're going to know these right away. And we all have them, and they can be distracting, or we can apply them. For us to excel. But they're mental, physical, environmental, social, and spiritual. And all these influencers are always around us. And I like to say that in performance, performance equals potential minus interference, right? So with those influencers, outside influencers, and
Sure.
they can be internal too, as you
Yep.
know this,
Yep.
can derail us. But it sounds like you found your way about yourself to be able to put away with the noise, as we call it, and to be able to really focus on your game so you could excel. And as you mentioned, you weren't the tallest one out there, but as we know, it's not about just how big or tall you are. It's about what comes from deep inside of us.
Sure. I would think that probably not having social media at the time was I guess social media, obviously depending on how you handle it, it could be good or bad. There's always going to be people who are maybe championing you to do good things, but there's always a lot of people maybe with negative, comments or aspects, and you see the world out there of people. You have both sides of people. Obviously they call them haters, or obviously people who are helping you. So I really had a good group of family, friends, anybody who was in my circle, really helping me push through and being a positive influence when I was there. So I think there was so much of that positivity that helped me in my mindset. There wasn't that aspect of someone could say anything on social media. Maybe I read it to put doubt in my head, or
Sure.
you shouldn't be there. So, it probably could have helped me in different ways, and maybe, people are growing their brands and things like that. Maybe that
Yeah.
would have helped, but it
Yeah.
also didn't have a negative effect on me either. So I think that really helped me a lot too, because all I knew is I had a positive influence, like I said, from family and friends and teammates who were, making me feel a certain way where I could be successful in that area.
That is really, really empowering right there, because we push out in the core energy again, the understanding of the dynamics is one of the things we really need is to build our success posse.
Yep.
We don't succeed in isolation, as you know. We don't necessarily succeed alone, although being alone is good in moments in time. But to your point, look, you spoke it. Building our success posse is very empowering. And to have the right people around us, the right energy around us, is very stimulating for us. So, congratulations on that. Happy to hear that.
Thank you. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's good because if you surround yourself with the right people, obviously there's people out there who could tell you why you shouldn't do something, but they probably have never done what you're trying to do anyway. So how could they give you and say you shouldn't be able to do that?
That's
So the
right.
people who are really trying to lift you up and be that positive influence, it only helps you be that much stronger to try to reach your goals. So I think, like I said, I was surrounded by those people. I didn't have people telling me I can't do it, and I probably wouldn't have listened to those people anyway because they never
Good.
tried to do what I was trying to do.
Yeah. That's great.
Yeah.
We have a lot of that out there. That again, those are the outside influencers. That's part of a mental influence,
Right.
there, right?
Yep.
People giving you that negative spin, or you should do it this way, you should do it that way. And this is where we really come into ourselves and need to. Again, as a leader, you're talking a lot about what leadership is now, and we all have that. All human beings, and we all have the four pillars we were talking about: the leadership, the performance, the well-being, the transition. We're going through this all the time. Um, so you've had some things in your life that have been a bit traumatic and traumatizing. Do you mind if we go there?
We could definitely talk about it. So 8 years ago, on the 27th of January, 2018, I was, of course, coaching basketball. Just a little later
Back
in,
on that hard
yeah,
court?
yeah, a little later in life. I wasn't coaching Division 1 anymore. I was coaching my kids, and for no rhyme or reason, I had a stroke while I was coaching,
Oh
which
my God.
was something. I never had any medical issues. The doctors had told me that I could have been there the day before at the doctor, and he couldn't have told me that that was potentially something that could happen to me. So it was a freak accident.
Whoa.
I was 43 years old,
Oh my goodness.
and had a stroke in front of, my kids playing basketball, which is not an ideal situation. So,
Oh my Lord,
um,
John.
you don't know what's happening at the time. I was in ICU at Jersey Shore Medical Center for about 7 days.
Oof.
You know, I we did have cell phones then and things like that, so I did have obviously more communication with people, but really just from a positive side too, which actually when I'm going through that and you're getting positive messages where people are coming to see you, obviously my family and my wife and my kids were a strong factor in, just trying to stay positive myself.
Good.
It was, again, you don't know what's happening when it's happening, but you start to understand how lucky you are the further you get out of it. Or I was really fortunate that I had some really short-term things happen to me in the first day. And then I had, besides some headaches that took maybe 6 months to go away, I had no
Sheesh.
physical limitations or things that, really had set me back. But in that moment, you really see, um, you know, you were talking about like your posse, your positive posse, like who are the people who really care about you and you reach out to you, and there I'll never, I have a mental list of some people who you don't even really maybe see or talk to that much, who really reached out, and it was really, important to me. And it's, you learn a lot. And I think my perspective of life changed after that, obviously, because you don't know what tomorrow is. You don't know, how much time we have, and doesn't matter how much money you have or where you live or what the situation, good or bad, it could all be taken away from you really, really quickly. We actually, my family and I took a trip. We got away and did an Airbnb in the Poconos just to get away. And this was a little bit after it had happened, but I was still having a lot of symptoms, and I wasn't a firm believer at the time of law of attraction or anything of that nature. I used to just think, oh, that's a coincidence,
Sure.
whatever the case may be. And
This energy, we're gonna go there.
yeah, and my wife did, and then I think she got me the book The Secret,
Uh-huh.
and I read it, and I was going through a tough time. I read The Secret. It just started resonating with me, and then I said, well, what's the worst that could happen if I gave this a chance and started to really believe in it, or give it a chance. And then it was amazing when you open up your mind to something and say,
Sure
I'm gonna
is.
try to see it. These amazing things starting to happen. What you speak comes to light, or what you think, just the stuff we were talking about earlier. And
Yes.
it kind of came full circle, and it became stuff that I started really, really believing in. And like I said, it all started from my wife starting early on saying it, and then getting that book and reading it, and then seeing the positive influences it could have on your life.
Right. So you hit a lot of things there, and let's just piece it out a little bit. The part about you were indicating manifesting energy, um, which is true, but the frequencies that we put out are really sort of the similar frequencies that we get back. This is part of our connection. Um, and so the fact that your wife was able to start opening up the avenues of frequency of energy is really important. That comes through the awareness, the acceptance, the validation of the situation, and with that, that will create that will create opportunity for us
Yeah.
to take choice. Now we profess here in the core energy dynamics to have conscious choice. And this is what your wife was bringing out to you, and then you started executing. Once we have that conscious choice, then we're able to go ahead and start trusting our process. And then we
Yeah.
hit our transition and into our transformation. So it sounds like you guys were firing on all those cylinders together as what we call that success posse. Your family being there for you and willing
Sure.
to ride it out and to help, with that so-called manifestation or the willingness. I like to refer to it in different terms. Willingness to let your energy groups come out and be available to the world as it is.
Yeah, that's so true. I mean, that was just the beginning of, like I said, me being open to those things. And as you continue to be more open to those things, people come into your life who are positive or have the same,
Yeah.
you know, things that you have in common. Who you surround yourself, they always say the 5 people you surround yourself, or who you become, or So you start to take all those things in, and when you go from not really doing that, it does take time to slowly start to see the process happening, and whether what you speak. And one of the things this year in 2026 is, my wife had said we're not going to use the word try, or certain keywords, or I can't, so I'm not saying already in 2026 I'm perfect, but when I do say that, I say to whoever I'm talking to, hold on, no, I need to change how I'm going to say that, and then I try to say it a little different. I say it differently. So it is a constant. You're constantly trying to be better, and you're not perfect. Oh, I'm going to think this and it's going to happen and everything's going to work out. There are a lot of ups and downs, and we're always going through these transformations. But
Yeah.
like I said, I've been on this journey now for probably about 8 years, where I've started to, and I don't think you're ever out of it, but I have lots of friends who say, well, once you see something, you can't unsee it. So, like, it's how all these positive things for doing the actions, saying affirmations or things at night or in the morning to start your day and end your day, and thinking what was positive in your day, because that's the thought you'll have going to bed. Do I do it every day? No. Should I do it every day? Yes. But
That's
I
good.
do it as much as I can,
Yeah.
writing things down. I still coach a little bit of basketball on some, like, trainings and private trainings, and I mentor some players, and I always say,
Great.
write your goals down, because it becomes more real. I tell them to stick it on their bathroom mirror, because that's probably where you're going to be, 2, 3, 4 times a day, and you start to see it. And I say it out loud and verbalize it. So I'm trying to coach these, my players. But when I say that to them, I'm also coaching myself to remind me to do it myself, not just tell them to do it. So,
Exactly. That's part of that beauty there. Um, it's interesting that you bring out the repetitive talk and the speaking out loud. Very important, because what we speak out loud, our body's listening to. And a lot of people don't, we take that for granted, but it's extremely important. Um, and that is an empowering moment when we do speak out loud and we are in sync with our mind, body, and our energy. Then we can really start to perform to 100%. And we like to say, whatever we do, we give 100%. Even though the energy might be calling for just 80% of the energy
yeah,
available, we give 100% into that 80%. 100. That's really important for us to understand that, and that's good enough. Whatever we give out there, we understand that that'll be good enough, just so long as we're pushing for that 100%,
right.
and whatever that is in the moment. I would like to touch also. Wow, you're really good here. Um, you were talking about how we speak to ourselves, and one of our tools that we use here is neurolinguistic programming. So neurolinguistic programming is how our language influences our thoughts and our behavior. So when I start to unwind that in groups or wherever I may be discussing the core energy dynamics and the breakdown of it, uh, people get a little quiet. So I put it out to them this way: um, instead of using goal, how would it feel if we're going to shoot to lose 10 pounds in a week? And it's our goal to lose 10 pounds. How about we say our intention is to lose 10 pounds? And by the end of the week, if we see that we didn't lose the 10, we only lost 8, 9, 7, 6, 3 pounds, we had an intention and we completed it to the best of our ability. So shifting language to your
Right.
point. Now I know as athletes, we have to be careful with goal, because there are certain times when goals are certainly appropriate. But so is the word intention and many other words in our vocabulary, as you well know. To really have an impact is to use our words appropriately. And again, back into that neurolinguistic program, I invite the audience, everyone. I push it out as much as possible, because you're so right on. It's really important how we speak to ourselves to get the maximum ability and understanding and awareness of where we're headed with our energy, but also to the outside world.
Right. Yeah, I 100% agree. Everything you say, sometimes sometimes the hardest moments for me personally is the quiet moments.
Yeah,
You have
sure.
more time to, think, and sometimes maybe not the best thoughts come into your head during those times when you're in a situation or the day's happening, a lot of things are going on. There's not maybe that time just to sit and think, but it's
Yeah.
sometimes those moments. You get up early in the morning and it's quiet and it's dark out and you're laying in bed, and what are you thinking about? Or and for me, that's probably some of the toughest times for me. Again, I don't think, no matter how much you try to do this, you're never perfect.
That's right.
And I try, but you try to push those negative. You try to then go back to maybe some of the things that you know are positive. Maybe you get up and whatever your routine is. Maybe you write, you meditate. Maybe you write some things down at time. Maybe you exercise. Maybe you say your affirmations or something. So you just can't sit in that state and think, maybe bad thoughts, because that leads to, bigger things. And again, that's your thought process. If that's what you're thinking, maybe that's how you start your day. So I know for me, sometimes getting early and just, I have to get out of that moment faster so I can, start that positive, mindset. Everybody tells me I'm positive. That's during the day. I'm helping everybody. I'm, trying to be good, and, you're saying the right things. It's those quiet moments sometimes where, it's just you and your thoughts,
Yeah.
which are good and bad.
Well, absolutely. And there are those moments that we all have. And, a lot of us will digress into past thinking, and then we start to cycle. And that's where we get caught into where you're discussing the quiet of the mind instead of thinking forward. Now, neuroscience has provided us the information that roughly 75 to 80% of our thoughts are from yesterday. And with that being said, we're already at battle a bit about staying out of the yesterdays, because yesterdays are not applicable to what's going on now.
Right.
Same thing about the future. We can only prepare ourselves to the best of our ability, but the more we pontificate about the future or project, that's wasted energy too. So we're back into that moment, right? And you're you're very good at that, and thank you for explaining some of that away. Let's get in a little deeper, because I know you'll go there, and I appreciate this. When you're in that period of recovery, now being an athlete, you understand resilience, recovery, and all the baseline understandings. But until we're in there, as you pointed out earlier, people can tell us what to do or how it might be all they want, but they're not in our shoes, and neither are we in theirs. So judgment is a thing that we're starting to discuss that more and more. The younger generations,
Hmm.
less hand-me-down judgment, as you know, as being a coach and a prolific basketball player that you are, an athlete. Um, you get all this, and it certainly does help us. Being athletes help. It certainly has helped me in my life
Yep.
overcome difficulties. But that being said, a lot of us are not athletes. So let's explain to the audience, in that moment when the world looked really difficult for you, and fortunate you have your success policy. What was in your internal understanding of how John was going to bring himself out of the recovery mode and back into uh, more of who John is?
That's a great question, actually. I really tie sport into basically everything I do, because I think whether it's a job, whether it's your mindset, whether how competitive you are, it all goes back to, being prepared, all the work you had done prior, being prepared in a moment for an opportunity. When the opportunity arises, what do you do? It's all those things. You prepare yourself. So when I had my medical issue, yes, there's recovery time, but at some point, it's like you got to get off the mat, right? Like I had to push myself. Okay, I need to start making things happen. Like, we're not, it's like being down 10 points, and when are we going to make our run here? And, I guess again, when you're laying there for such a long period of time, there's a lot of time and your thoughts.
That's why I wanted to go there.
Yeah. So, at
Huge.
some point, in there, you got to go almost back to your training of like, how you've overcome things. This is just another thing to overcome.
Yeah.
The mind being so powerful, it's not, I can never have something. It's what do I have to do to get that? And I just knew I had to get back to being the person that I was, or being a better person from all the stuff I learned because of the stroke. So for me, like I said, I had, great family behind me, really being positive with me. And then it was time for me to, who knew when the right time was? I knew when the right time was, that I had to push myself. Someone can tell you.
Sure.
And then, it was a good 5 months that I was probably, from when it happened to kind of when I was ready to get back in the game, if you want to use that. And
So does that mean physically running?
yeah.
Your impairment, was there any physical impairment? You said it was you were about a week in the hospital, and then there was recovery time. So whether there was any difficult physical impairment that you needed to overcome?
Well, I wouldn't say like I had headaches, like some
You mentioned
severe
that.
headaches for an extended period of time, and I was on some medication early, but from like a physical standpoint of moving any of my limbs or anything, I did not have that after the initial stroke.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. And again, I go back to I've heard stories of either things, people not having ability to use certain limbs because of a stroke, or passing away because of a stroke. And again, stroke maybe didn't mean so much to me prior, when you hear what things were happening to people. But now every time I hear that word, or what I had was called a subarachnoid hemorrhage, which is basically a brain bleed, or like a broken blood vessel in your
Sure.
head.
Hmm.
Anytime I hear stroke or something, and I hear, oh, maybe this person has something happen to them, it makes me see how lucky I am not to have those things. And again, I do tie it all back to sports, but maybe I'm lucky enough because I was an athlete and I was very active, and my body was used to recovery and pushing yourself a little bit. And, only, I guess only God knows if that, how that works. But I got to think it had something to do with it.
Yep. Um, Interesting that you went there because, as you remember, when I was breaking down the different influencers, spirituality is one of them. And when I bring that up in front of groups, or when I'm speaking on stage, wherever it might be, I can see people get a little wiggly about it. So I'll pause and I'll ask people, is there any questions? Sure enough, the arms start to go up. The spirituality part. Well, in my faith, my religion, and then that'll come to a bit of a breakdown. So I'll stop the audience knowing that this is going to be part of the conversation, and I'll go in and I'll explain to them that it's our spirituality that we're born with. It's not religion. If we
Right.
choose to take our spirituality into a religious faith, whatever that might be, that's our choice. Again, conscious choice, we choose that. But back to our own spirituality, this is something no one can take from us. As you know, by government, we're known as a number, right? As even in sports, we're known as a number
Yep.
for the better part. But my point being is that understanding our own spirituality and trusting our process in our spirituality, whatever that means, whether we're attached to the universe and a quant type of theory, or we're attached more to the physical aspect of nature itself as we see it in the world today, or behavior of individuals around us, humans around us, behavior of the world around us. Uh, all these things tie into our ability to be able to break ourselves down and to be able to trust our spirituality like you did. You're such a perfect example of it, John, and to recover in the fashion that you did. Let's go a little further about that after you recovered and you felt 100%. Should I say that, or how was it?
I wouldn't say 100, but I knew, like I said, I didn't know when 100% was ever going to be, or if
When
it
the headaches
was.
subsided, let's
Yeah,
go
I mean,
there.
subsided, and then I was ready to go. I mean, spirituality I agree on the standpoint of, it doesn't have to be necessarily religion. Spirituality could be different for every single person, what it means to them.
Yeah.
Um, you know, Again, I was saying stuff earlier about the universe, about what you put out there, and you said it too. That could be your spirituality. It could be more nature, as you mentioned. It. it's something from within that, maybe you can't put your finger exactly on it, but
Yeah.
it's part of you. Or, for me personally, I say some things at the end of day that obviously could be prayer for some, could be not for others, but it's almost some stuff to remind me, and it's that inner me that knows what's being said and where I'm trying to be. And I feel like, that again, that's different for everybody.
But
But
as you, that's your uniqueness, and you own it.
yeah,
That's part of where we're going with this,
yeah.
right?
Yeah, I agree. And there's people who, maybe go to church or don't go to church. That doesn't matter. Everybody has their own way to go about it.
That's right.
But I do feel like everybody has to believe in some higher power, whatever that may be.
Right.
And
Well, we are atoms and molecules. When we start to break ourselves down, we
right,
can really go there. But you
right.
know, um,
Yeah, I think that's a big part of all of us, is just how much you really, really dig into it.
yeah. So again, we thank you for coming on the podcast, because that's what we're doing, bringing different people on like yourself, so everyone can hear stories. Even though our stories are very different from one another, we have a lot of similarity.
Sure.
Our language may be different, our thought process may be different, things like this, but we all know this. We're all built the same inside. We can't get away from that. And, that's the importance of being able to recognize that, and that we are all very similar, but yet we are unique. And that if we could understand that and work more with that type of energy, I think we'd find more success going on in the immediate moment. Remember, success is, people think it's a final product. No, success is in the moment as much as in the final product too.
Sure.
100%.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I would say that maybe everybody's not in the same part of their journey. So when I had people who were coming to me, with things about, what you speak and who you surround yourself and all those things, if you're not open to that, you may not see it in a way that they see it. So I really feel like that is everybody's. Some people, as I said earlier, I didn't believe in this stuff that my wife was saying earlier, because I wasn't ready to receive it.
sure.
So when she would say something and I would just say, "Oh no, that's a coincidence that we said red car and we saw one,"
Right.
and she was like, "No, we talked it into existence."
This energy.
Yeah.
I love
And
it. I just,
again, you got to be open to that to really start to see it, and then you surround yourself with those type of people. Or if you see people who are doing something that don't fit what you believe, you may not gravitate towards them, and you may stay away from them. So, it kind of makes you go down a certain path once you do see it, who
Yeah.
you want to associate with.
Yeah.
And, that's probably been a big eye opener for
It's
me.
the awareness. It's a simple part of the awareness.
Yeah.
Again, I break it down. It's the awareness to the acceptance to the validation that we can start progressing through our forms of transition. So it's really important that we understand that, and I thank you for help pushing that out.
Of course.
This world's a lot going on out there, so you want people to start working in from within first before they seek help into therapy, psychiatry, psychologists, the medicine and all that stuff. Yeah, it's there for reasons, but if we can start within first, not press that panic button and say, "Oh no, something's here. How am I going to fix it?" Well, start within and start to be able to help ourselves. In other words, we can't fix anyone else,
Right.
right? And then people say, "Oh, well, I think I can help fix you," or no, that's not happening. The only one that can fix us are ourselves,
Ourselves.
you know,
Yeah.
and or with some help from our success posse.
Yeah.
And it's so great that you have one.
And one of the things I do try to do too is, I was talking earlier about social media being good and bad.
Yes.
And obviously the companies all have an algorithm about what you start searching is what the stuff that starts to keep coming up on your phone over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So if you can fill that with positive experiences, I mean, I'm sure Jim Rohn,
Yeah.
I love listening to him, and obviously he's not talking today. That happened so much earlier, and it still has it still resonates today. And then if you listen to him, then other guys or women like that come up in your feed. So if you're internalizing social media from a positive standpoint of that type of message, then it's going to help you throughout the day. So I do it in my car sometimes, and I don't always listen. Instead of listening to the radio or maybe a podcast, maybe it's just little snippets where I just have my phone next to me, and if you just you hear him and you scroll, if you scroll, then it's like the next person is saying that, and it's all positive things about what you really want to hear. Those are the things that in those moments, instead of maybe listening, like I said, to the radio or something else, maybe you need those moments throughout the day, because
Sure.
there's a million books obviously that you can read,
Yeah.
Think and Grow Rich. There's,
There you go.
3 Feet from the Devil, Outwitting the Devil, 3 Feet from
Yeah.
Gold. There's a million other books that you
Oh,
can go
there are.
to that
Yeah.
have great authors. And, if you can sprinkle those things in, I think it just keeps you on that path that we were talking about.
That is a great word, sprinkling, because there's no one thing. Remember, we're multidimensional. So we have multiple things out there for us. Um, and, it's so interesting when we start to get a little balled up, we tend to, digress and we go to that spot where we're comfortable being uncomfortable. Isn't it the other way around? We're supposed to be uncomfortable getting comfortable. But, again, with the inner critic, the cortisol, the many different attitudes of not talking to ourselves properly, of letting the judgment come in from the outside influencers, we can drain real quick and go there. You said a few things earlier that were very enlightening, John, and one was I want to move out of it quickly. I wanted to keep moving away from it, which is very important. Fear and anxiety, people take that on as, oh my gosh, fear is here, I'm doomed. Anxiety, the same thing. Well, if we flip it, again, we start using fear as a motivator, anxiety as a motivator. Again, as athletes, we get a little jump on this, but all people can relate to this. Once we decide that fear is just a temporary thing, and you mentioned something earlier too about time, that time is going to time's our friend. Time's going to come along, it's going to help us move forward. It's not going to help us move back. That ain't happening.
Right.
Left nor right. It's one direction, and that is forward. So that's part of the beauty of that. And to have all these understandings in alignment is really part of our empowerment. So, if I may, it sounds like you became very empowered once the headache started subsiding and you were able to get back into some sort of routine. Can you explain what that was to us? And was your routine that much different prior to having the experience of the
Yeah, that's an interesting scenario there because I right before, maybe about 4 months before my stroke, um, I took a leap of faith and quit my W-2 job to become a full-time real estate agent.
aha, another
So
transition?
another transition, which
Yeah,
sounded great, but after, when you just start out, there's no paycheck every 2 weeks in real estate.
yeah,
You got to keep doing deals. So with the stroke, I basically, set myself. I was doing it for 3 months. I set myself back 6 months of zero income. So,
tough.
that was one of the that was part of a motivating factor for me getting off the couch too. We got to let's start making things happen.
Sure.
I have a young family, and I needed to not fail for what I chose to do, and so it took me some time. I got right up on the horse. I started trying to, do things, and I went from that moment trying to grow my real estate career, which now I've been doing for just about 9 years.
Oh,
But
great.
it was burn the boats, right? I had no other option, and you have a driving, motivating force, which was my family and how to provide for them. And they were very positive and very, they really supported me doing it, but it's not immediate. It's not something that,
Right.
in that industry that you just all of a sudden you make, a whole bunch of money in day one.
That's a
It's
process.
it's it's a process. There's a
Yeah,
sales cycle, there's highs and lows. There's no
yeah.
guarantee, you know, you're going to buy a house or sell a house or get clients or whatever. But I turned back.
Contracts are broken for different reasons
Yeah,
at the last
whatever.
minute.
So
Yeah,
again, that is part of anxiety and failure. And it's like, what do you do? Do you, crawl up in a ball and cry, or,
right.
under a blanket, or you're gonna fight through it, and all those missteps, or, a quote unquote loss or something that happens only makes you stronger. So the next time that happens, maybe you can figure out a way to how to turn that around and make it a win.
Yeah.
So it was like a double whammy for me. I really didn't have income per se from my side, and
Oof.
I just came off, a stroke, which you don't know the long-term effects. I was, yes, in the moment better and everything, but who knew in 6 months if something could happen? I
It
don't
must have been
think.
difficult not to project too far when you're just talking about projection because, how can you not,
I mean, you
be
could think about
concerned?
it in the moment, but I also knew I can't just harp on that
There
because
we go.
then that's all I'm going to think about. I
Excellent.
I don't think about it on a day to day, really ever.
Excellent.
I would say people talk to me here and there about it, and they talk more about it to me in those few moments a year than I would think about it myself. I think about it the time that it happens, and I celebrate it like it was an opportunity for me because it taught me so many things.
Awesome.
So I don't,
Growth.
yeah, growth. So I don't use it like, I want any sympathy every year on this date when I post something on social media. It really is not for anyone else other than it is for me first and foremost.
Yeah.
And it's to tell, I try to use that platform to say, be grateful for all the things you do have, not for the things you don't have.
Excellent.
And time and family and things like that. Enjoy every little bit of it. And again, I'm not perfect in every moment. I try to be way more present than maybe I had in the past. But that's a powerful thing, and it's even the little things. Like my kids go off to college, and it's tough when you have to send them on their way to the airport, and
Yeah.
so the days leading up to that, and you're really trying to soak in every moment and look at them a little different and hug them a little longer, or those are the little moments that you could say, no matter what happens, I got everything out of that. I squeezed every moment I can out of
Precious,
that with that.
precious
So
moments.
yeah, yeah,
And
that's
moments are precious,
yeah. And
you know.
it's so again, the stroke and that stuff was a lot of things against, my back against the wall. And, what do? Do you come out swinging, or, you just go down? So, I look, like I said, it's always a teaching moment. It's what you take out of it, not, woe is me. I could have said, oh, I don't have a W-2 job where I get a paycheck every 2 weeks. And I,
Sure.
and I, and I just had a stroke, and who's going to help me? No, I got to help myself.
That's it. It's so true, so important. Wow, you're delivering such goodness today. Really thankful for
Yeah.
that, 100%.
Thank you.
Your recovery is fabulous. It's great to see you here now and to go back and discuss it. This is a lot of good information for people to take in and to realize that, yes, we can recover. And you've recovered on numerous occasions, particularly with the stroke, and then to go on and to make a career out of something that wasn't really a career yet, that's very challenging too, all your things. I'd like to know, let's shift it a little bit. I'd like to know what are some of the things you would tell your players when the odds looked very dim and against the team of winning? What does that mean to you? What's a winning formula that you would give them? I stacked a little bit.
Yep.
So let me go back. Um, what would you tell them when the game was in a very difficult, tight situation and time was starting to run out? What would some of the things you would do to help them move along?
A key moment I would always say is these are the moments we practiced for. So you don't become great by just throwing up Hail Marys. I don't think it's the consistency aspect, whether it's sport, whether it's a different job, whether it's your mindset. It's that consistency and the action that we take. So we put ourselves in successful. Could we still fail and maybe not win the game? Yes, but we're going to be in way better position because these are why we practice. These are when no one's looking, or when you're practicing and no one's really watching. Then I would tell them that all the time, and just we've done this over and over again. Now we just need to execute it, and we've done it against in the gym against other teams. It doesn't matter who's on the other side. We know what we need to do to
So you
execute.
just reminding them that in their toolbox of experience, I like to say. So another thing that we use to help people is, go into our toolbox of experience. shine off some of those tools. Remembers, things that, to your point, that we've gone through already that can help us, motivate us to
Yep.
take us into the moment now and to execute to the best of our ability. So then to go to the second part of that question, what is a winning formula for you if we take away the W out of the game?
The was never, and I think if you ask some of the players who played for me, that yes, I wanted to win, but I have relationships with all the players after now,
No doubt.
and maybe we knew we won games, but I don't really remember specifically what it was. It's for me as a coach or someone who wants them to relate to someone, I feel like you empower. This is a journey not for wins for a high school basketball. This is life stuff. So I was trying to teach life skills, accountability, how on time you are, how prepared you are, can you follow direction? How do you work well as a team? If I would assume that when they go on a job interview at some point, those are going to be all important
You
aspects
bet.
to the employer. So, we can enjoy all those things, and yes, the byproduct could be winning, but things were happening which I'm sure they didn't realize in the moment. I'm trying to teach them life skills, because I feel like I was lucky enough to have a few coaches in my life who did the same for me. And yeah, like I said, it was maybe we won some, we lost some, but ultimately I didn't remember them for the wins and losses. I remembered them for what they taught me or the person they were, and that was the stamp I wanted to put on these kids.
Sweet.
And they were all good kids too, so it's like it was easy. I was trying to give them the answers to the test. They just had to be willing to listen, to what I was saying,
Yeah.
and they were all really, really good. And like I said, and we then you come together as a team. It becomes one, as opposed to, at least in basketball, five individuals or 12 guys on a team. It became one solid unit all the time.
I love it. So, gosh, you're hitting on all the tools we use here. We go from the me to the we to the us, right? That's what that is right there.
Yeah.
And really important for the student athletes to understand that it is just a game, but difficult to do so. When you're an athlete, you're in it to win it, so to speak. And a lot of coaches do, you know, uh, execute their coaching philosophies and methods around that. And how successful that is, well, that's for everyone who is involved in those moments. But you and I certainly think a lot alike in the fact that, teaching not just the game, but the availability to appreciate the game, to appreciate their teammates, the coaching staff, everyone that's involved in it. It's not a one man show.
Right.
Even in golf or tennis, when you're singled out, squash, whatever, you're just a single person out there playing. You have coaches, mental, physical,
Yeah.
dietitians. You got it all working. So it is that go from the me to the we to the us. I love that and
Uh,
use that quite often in my coaching history as well.
and every person doesn't win every game, and you don't win in life all the time. So sometimes losses are good. They teach a lot of
Better than
things.
wins.
They do, and it's how, depending on when it is, it's how you come back from it, or how do you, react to it, or
Yeah,
there's many different things. So I know, again, I tie a lot of it to basketball, but it could be any sport.
sure.
Sometimes there are actually some good losses during the season because they need to maybe ground you as a team or an individual, or things are just not always sunshine and rainbows all the time. So
100%. I talk a lot about experiences and what that means. Well, experiences, and it's kind of some of our language is man made. This is kind of one of them. They're neither good nor bad. They're growth, to your point. So a W and an L, they're really the same thing because you're in the game,
right.
you're in it, you're in life, and you're in it in life to do the best you can, just like you are in a sporting event as a player, coach, or however you're involved in it. and we're there to do the best that we can. And again, our best is good enough if we do push out our best, and that is for sure. So in life as we know it, it gets really, really busy, and so do games. They get very, very intense. What would be one of the things you would say to your players when you were just flat out on the dime? It's the end of the third quarter, and the other team's behind 15, 20 points. You're way up. How do you handle that situation?
We were fortunate enough to be very good for a long time that I coached, which was great. So we did come in those situations where, maybe we were up on teams. And, I would always tell maybe players who didn't get as many minutes, maybe when the games were close, that when you get those opportunities, it's not that we're just doing our own thing. We're still doing all the things we practice, and that you're getting your opportunity, not just go in there and try to chuck up threes. We still want to do all the things we want to do, especially if you want to be taken seriously for minutes that may be, something in front of you that you're trying to get. So I would always say I don't play the score, we just play the game. So
Absolutely.
so, not that that means to try to, maybe run up the score on anybody or anything, and I would never do that to someone.
Sure.
But, we also have a philosophy of how we want things done, and that goes all together with I was given the opportunity by being hired in it's a privilege to do those things because
Absolutely.
especially young kids, I don't care what sport it is, all the way up through high school. That's very formative years for them on how they think, what they think, how they act. And if you can be a positive influence during that time, and if you're lucky enough to have them for more than 1 year or two, then I feel like that's a big part of life. I mean,
Yeah.
people say, "Oh, this coach is good or this coach is bad." It's important to parents who to get good coaches, and I feel like just like myself, as I was lucky enough to have a great JV basketball coach that to this day, which was more than 30 years ago, I still keep in contact because of the person he is and because of the influence he had on my life, not because we were good, we were bad, we won, I made shots. Yes, we did all those things,
Yeah.
but I have a relationship to him, and I feel like coaches have a responsibility to do those things, and it's a privilege to get to be able to coach these kids and help mold their lives for the future.
Amen on that, my friend.
Yeah.
You are one special man.
Thanks. Thanks.
Really a pleasure, I have
Thank
to
you.
say. I
Thank
know
you.
the audience has got a lot out of it. So have I. And I like to say this, and the audience has heard it a few times, I'm sure, those listening. Where I went to do my studies for the core energy dynamics and the mastery of it, IPEC, they have a tagline and it caught me right away. And it's everyone we meet is our teacher and our student too. And my friend, you've taught me things tonight.
Thanks. Thank you.
Very, very, very thankful for you.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I had a great time. This is amazing
Great.
what
Well,
you
we're
do.
not off the hot seat yet.
Okay.
So we're at the end of our time, as you can hear. And just one last question for you. The world is very tumultuous right now. There's a lot going on out there. You are a blank piece, a white sheet paper. That's it. What would John like to see happen in the world today?
Um, I would just like to see everybody have more conversations, and I think right now, I guess there's a lot of things, and things happen very quickly. I keep going back to the social media piece just because I was in a time where I didn't have it, and now I still use it a lot, so I can kind of see
Sure.
both sides of it. We
Good.
just get so much information so quickly, and again, as I was talking about the algorithms, if you start to see one thing, then you see only that one thing. There's two sides to everything, right, wrong, or indifferent. And I just think, I think people need to talk through some stuff. I have differences with people. I feel like it's just you if you're able to talk through it as opposed to, you know, going alternate routes, whatever they are. I mean, obviously politics are a big thing right now. I mean, we didn't, when I was growing up, I don't remember that even being not a big thing. I'm sure people had their thing. No one asked about it. No one said those things. Now it's such a forefront.
Yeah.
So I just everybody is. I feel like everybody. There's a lot of tension all the time, and it just just talk. It's way easier when you can have a conversation and give opinions.
Isn't it just
You
so
know.
simple? We make it so complicated.
Yeah.
And, you've hit my heart in many things tonight. And this last one in particular, communication. I am a big, big pusher, believer, and a communicator. It's extremely important. We learn about ourselves, we learn about the world, we learn about anything and everything we want to if we communicate. And, it's so interesting because communication, the majority of our communication comes from our listening. So if we would just pause and give people uh, kindness and respect right out of the gate and to communicate with them and to figure out how that is with that understanding that everyone's different, everyone has value, everyone's got something to say, and to let people embrace that, we can form a bond that can be almost impenetrable. But if we don't communicate, then we're not going to get there. And I just want to leave us with this. When it's the most difficult time to communicate, that is the best. And I've learned to really enjoy it and embrace it uh, because the issue may be so difficult that we're not speaking to ourselves properly or to the other side properly. So that's where the listening comes in and all what we discussed about understanding our core dynamics and the energy of that. But having said that, when it's really difficult, we end up learning if we continue to communicate, we learn more about the issue and we learn more about the other person. And really, most importantly, or as importantly, we learn a hell of a lot about ourselves,
Sure.
which is really what we want to do, right?
Yep. That is true.
I mean, this is you have your stage, I have my stage. You're the main actor on your stage, I'm the main actor on my stage. It's like everyone, all the audience. We all have our own stages. Use them and reach out to the world. We're here for one another.
Yeah. I couldn't agree more. That's
Yeah.
well said.
Well, thank you for everything, John. I really appreciate it. Before we sign off, could you tell us where people might find you if you'd like us for them to do that?
Sure. I'm on Instagram, Facebook. JT Yablonski is my Instagram. Um, you know, someone, my all my information's there. Whether you want to DM me, my cell phone actually you can get to me too. So, I do, like I said, I do basketball, I do real estate, I real estate invest, I property management. I'm a little bit of everything. I try to be really positive. I'm a big Seton Hall guy. Went to school there. Still really supportive of the program. So,
Great.
like I said, anything anybody needs that I can help with, I'm happy to do so.
That's fabulous. Audience, there you have it. I would reach out to John. I know I will for occasions coming up. And certainly, John, we have formed a friendship now forever.
I
And I'm very
appreciate that.
thankful for that.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This was fun. The
Yeah.
time went by quickly too.
It goes quickly, doesn't it? Yeah, well, hopefully we'll have you back. I hope you come back
Would
again.
love to.
You
Would
and I
love
can
to.
sit here for a long time. Maybe we'll have a round table.
There we. I love that too.
Yeah, and I'm
Okay.
kicking that around too. So, audience, thank you very much for coming on today. I'd like to say if you've enjoyed what you've been listening to, and I hope you have, I know we've enjoyed delivering it to you. Whatever platform you're on, please hit the like and subscribe button, and please hit comment too, and comment. We'd like to hear more and more about what you're thinking about what we're delivering here in each and every episode. You see us on a weekly basis, and as you know, it's all about the guest. And tonight, we're very fortunate to have John come on, speak with rawness and his authenticity. So we thank him very much. We'd also like to give thanks to Rect Productions, the studio that we're in, and also to Alex Fabio. He's our social media director and takes care of a lot of the back scenes. So we like to give thanks to him too. And thanks for all of you for coming on. Now remember, your mind is your power. Stay empowered.